Okay, we're going to do something a little unusual. I'm Mike Melson, and I've been part of CITI community for a long time, not as long as several of you. I've also known Ken Carter for a long time. Ken was my boss when I was at Cloudflare, and I'm going to do something you're not supposed to do, which is to contradict your former boss. You heard him say that the only thing worse than getting between an audience and its lunch was getting between an audience and its cocktail hour. It's even worse to stand up in the middle of lunch and interrupt all these conversations. But we're going to do that. This is an unusual panel because it's actually a series of pre-recorded videotapes. Some amazing people. When I first was given this assignment, I thought, oh, great. I'm looking forward to being part of this, but I'm not going to get to interact with all of them. So the main reason I'm here is I'm good at tweeting. I'm going to give you very short Twitter-linked bios of these speakers, and then we're going to listen to them. Obviously, we won't have time for any Q&A, and we won't be able to do any Q&A, but I do have a way you can contribute to the discussion. If you go on either Twitter or Threads, and you search for Ellie Noam, all one word, you will find out that Ellie has a Twitter account. He used it once in 2009 to mention he's going to Yale to give a talk on digital TV. But we can use it to do three things. I challenge all of you to come up with a one-word description of Ellie and post it. I look forward to seeing what the word cloud looks like. For extra credit, tell a one-liner joke about Ellie. And if you want to do something serious, you can share with all of us what you think the most important buzzword that Ellie launched would be. For me, it's 2.5. But some of you can probably come up with something better. So our first speaker is Koos Bekker. He is probably, I guess, almost anyone would say he's the most successful entrepreneur, CEO Africa has produced. And guess what? Ellie worked with him when he was a student here at the Columbia Business School. He did a project on cable TV, went home and started a cable TV company, also started MTN, which is now the most successful international telephone company across Africa. And more importantly, he was the CEO of Naspers for 17 years. And that company is now the most highly capitalized company, has the largest market value of any company in Africa. That's enough. Over to Koos Bekker.
Some 40 years ago, my wife and I arrived at Columbia University from then apartheid South Africa. At that time, our home country was inward-looking and quite claustrophobic. New York was the exact opposite, cosmopolitan, vibrant, focused on being the best in class. We loved every minute of the experience. To keep us alive, my wife got a job as a stylist at Glamour magazine. I attended courses at the Columbia Business School and then the School of Journalism. But I soon ran into Eli Noam and his CITI, who opened my eyes to new dynamic thinking on communications. That was exactly 1 decade before the internet was born. New York was the epicenter of media globally. The biggest TV networks, newspapers, magazines, they were all based here. Now, at that juncture, the latest and hottest media invention was paid television. Home box offers proved an immense success on cable systems. A few other channels were nibbling. But outside the US, there were none. So within Eli's research unit, I started a research project. Could a paid television service work outside the US, even in economies lacking cable? Having convinced myself, I then found 6 investors and we launched in Africa, where infrastructure was the polar opposite of the US, so the tech had to be tweaked. 6 months after launch, we always went bust. Then the venture took off and became an enormous success. Using satellites, we covered 50 countries in Africa, the vast majority of the continent. This also had a social effect. Imagine that your family were living in a mining town in Katanga in the Congo. One day your window on the world still comprised a few dog-eared magazines at the hairdressers, shipped in from Europe 3 weeks late. The next day a satellite dish goes up on your roof. Now inside your own den, multiple streams of video, movies, sport, news, fashion from all over the world. At exactly the same minute as New Yorkers saw it. That's wow. The success of that allowed us to buy paid television systems in Europe, but also to study another American invention, mobile telephony. We launched MTN, which today is Africa's largest telecoms provider. 16 countries, some 280 million subscribers. A few years later, the commercial internet was created. We sold or spun off these first inventions and plunged into the web. Today, we operate or are shareholders in web services in 100 countries. Some 2 billion people across the world use one of those services daily. Our market cap is around $200 billion US. Incidentally, during these years, we bought billions worth of goods and services from the US. Now, please allow me to pay homage to Eli Noam and the Columbia Business School. They created the environment that helped me personally develop. Without them, my life would have taken quite a different turn. And that's the end of a thumbnail CV. However, if one projects forward to the next generation of students now studying at Columbia, I wonder if they'll be quite as lucky. At least 2 risks seem evident. The first is self-satisfaction. It's remarkable that this New York metropole, ground zero of the media universe when I was here 40 years ago, that New York played hardly any role in the creation of the internet. Why not? Well, let's guess. One reason may be that those titans of TV and print saw themselves as natural rulers of their industry. Sort of what we worry about 5 nerds in TV shirts eating a pizza in some garage in California. Well, today, a single one of those top web companies in California can buy all of the TV channels and all of the newspapers and magazines in New York put together. That's the risk of hubris. A second risk for a new student, perhaps, is that the atmosphere in the US is changing. During the Second World War, leaders here recognized that no country could isolate itself from the dangers then emerging in Germany and Japan. So after 70 million people were dead, the US leaders crafted a new global order. Rules of behavior and institutions were created, the United Nations, GATT, the IMF, the World Bank, all to get countries to live peaceably together. Now that system has held for 70 years, but it's being ripped up now. You in the audience here today would understand the psychology driving that change better than I could. But as an ignorant outsider, allow me one observation. Underlying some current US thinking is an assumption of exceptionalism, sort of we can boss everyone around and they'll do as told. Now in business, this tone of voice sometimes emerges when a company has been dominating its sector for a while. You still remember General Motors, IBM, General Electric? In their day, each loomed as a sort of Tyrannosaurus Rex, able to crush anyone around. Then the game changed. Today there are normal-sized animals that have to live peaceably among others on the farm. And the same happens to nations. 600 years ago, the 3 biggest economies in the world were China, India, plus the Islamic caliphates and Ottomans. Only then did Europe enter the fray. The epicenter of entrepreneurial energy moved repeatedly from Venice to Florence, then to Lisbon, Madrid, Amsterdam, Paris, the UK, New York, California. No one city or state remained number one for long. If anyone argues that present US dominance will turn everlasting, I think wakey wakey. Today, China's industrial output far surpasses that of the US. It qualifies more engineers, it registers more patents, and it publishes more articles in peer-reviewed academic journals than the US. India is in hot pursuit. There's simply no practical way those two can be isolated and crushed anymore. So the likelihood is that our world will stay a multipolar place. Each of us will have to find a way to live in peace with our neighbors. Now, of course, those were shared assumptions when I arrived here in New York 40 years ago. They seem to have produced a few tolerably decent decades. A world in which every beast eats every weaker beast until it itself gets eaten, somehow that sounds not quite as appealing. Now, may I wish Eli, Noam, and Columbia University the very best of luck for the years ahead. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm Manny Shalsuni, Columbia faculty here. I have the honor to introduce the next video presentation that we get to enjoy by Emerita Janow, who is the professor of practice, was professor of practice at Columbia SIPA, but for those who are not at Columbia, which is International Public Affairs, and is now the dean there and has been a internationally recognized expert in international trade. I don't know what she's going to talk about, but certainly her perspective had a broader view of the telecom and media perspectives that we've been hearing.
It's a privilege to say a few words of appreciation about Professor Ellie Noam, who I have known for nearly 30 years. Ellie, I'm so sorry not to be there with you tonight to celebrate. I'm just returning from Switzerland. Thank you, Nadine, for allowing me to share a thought with you virtually. Ellie Noam has been an incredible contributor to scholarship and engagement around the digital economy and an absolute leader in these areas at Columbia University, very early on and still to this day. He is an immensely productive scholar, author of some 38 books and hundreds of articles published in numerous languages, with ongoing contributions to disciplinary journals across a number of fields, economics, law, communications, and regular columns and op-eds in major publications. As Dean of SIPA, when I was starting a new initiative around technology and policy, I knew it had to be interdisciplinary, and I was grateful for his contributions, tremendous contributions, in the important areas of internet governance and regulation and market structure. Ellie is an incredibly generous colleague, always and by default cooperating across campus to support initiatives that build bridges across disciplines, fields, and schools. And indeed, his career has been defined by that broad-ranging intellect and collegiality, contributing to curricular initiatives at SIPA, Journalism, Business School, and, of course, his own institute, which has been very influential, as well as other university service that were truly just service undertakings for our collective well-being. And I can't tell you how many times in my travels around the world, be it in Europe or South Africa or elsewhere, where a telecom or media leader or regulator has referenced the importance of Ellie's teaching or work on their own thinking or policy. I'm also grateful for our long friendship and his adventurous spirit that has brought together so many diverse voices at their dinner table and in the conference room, and the occasions when we've also had time to explore new frontiers thanks to his generosity and curiosity. My great thanks for your contributions to our community. I hope that retirement will mean that you can drop all those irksome activities and continue only with those that give you joy. Thank you so much.
So before Mike introduces the next speaker, I would like to thank both of our moderators, Mike Nelson and Henning Schulzering. Mike is an amazing person. He's been with CITI for as long as I've been there, probably longer, and was Al Gore's basically brain on all things information technology, as well as technology. Basically, you help invent the internet, right, Mike?
I've been introduced that way many times.
There you go. And Henning Schulzering needs no introduction, or at least should need no introduction, but I'm going to give you one anyway. Henning has also been a longtime collaborator with CITI. We could not thank him more for joining us. And Henning was the former chief technologist at the FCC, as well as a member of the Internet Hall of Fame. And you've been at the engineering school for a couple of years now, right? Just a few. So I want to thank both of them for agreeing to moderate this panel, and thank you both so much. So Mike, I turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is from the UK. Derek Wyatt is the head of the Digital Policy Alliance, but before that, he spent a lot of time as a member of the Parliament in the UK, focusing a lot on communication issues. He has one of the most interesting bios because he's also a rugby player.
Yes.
And we're not talking about just playing at Oxford. He was on the national team. And he also played for the Barbarians, but you'll have to read his bio to find out more about that. So, Derek Wyatt.
I first met Eli in Oxford in 1999. He had ruffled greyish hair then, a jacket in which he had lived in for quite some time, and a pace of intellect we were unused to. He was the sort of academic who would finish your sentences. We were attending the inaugural meeting of the Oxford Internet Institute, and he was to have a calming influence on us all for the next 12 years. Aside from his abiding knowledge and sheer enthusiasm, it is my view that Eli has little time for tittle-tattle. It's also my experience that when a meeting closed, he would break the world speed record to find a decent pub and, even better, a glass of red wine. We soon paired up. In due course, he asked me to join his board here at CITI, and so I have known him 25 years and more. And even now, I still run to New York to see him. He has an urgency and a will, which if we could plug into the public service networks, would make all of our monthly bills cheaper. Eli is a one-off. He's fun, amusing, works at the speed of light, just check those paginations of some of his many books. And yet, for this mere youngster, it is still not enough. He always desires more. Well, dearest Eli, you have left your mark on us all here tonight, and the wider world, and for that we should award you a standing ovation. Bless you, my dear, dear friend. Much, much love to you and Nadine, your better half, Derek.
Our next roast or toast is from Korea. Haru Sato is...
He's in Japan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning to make the train. Ellie and I had a wonderful trip to Japan, and he's also worked in Korea. So the fact that he has this global network is why I'm confused. But our speaker is at Konan University, not spelled with the C, spelled with a K. Like Ellie, he's an economist, but he's multidisciplinary. He was the dean of the economics department and then moved over and became the dean of the innovation and management department. And he'll be giving us a Japanese view of Ellie.
Hello, everyone. My fellowship and association with CITI and Professor Noam spans over 35 years. As a visiting researcher, I had pleasure staying to research at CITI 3 times. My first visit to CITI lasted 4 months, from June to September 1990. This encounter with CITI profoundly changed my life as a researcher. My second stay at CITI lasted 7 months, beginning in September 1994. While I was in New York, the great earthquake struck Kobe on January 17, 1995. I returned to Japan temporarily a week later and witnessed the devastating reality in Kobe. Gas and electricity were cut off, and residential areas were filled with rubble. Returning to New York a week later, I had dinner with Eddie that evening and discussed Kobe's disastrous situation. Communication networks severely damaged, leaving both the government and citizens unable to obtain necessary information and deeply confused. After dinner, when I got home, Eddie contacted me late that night and sent me a draft paper on communication issues during the disaster. I was very amazed by Eddie's intellectual curiosity and insight into real-world disaster situation. During the 1990s, CITI hosted several seminars in Tokyo, providing many Japanese participants with opportunity to learn about telecom competition policy and gaining widespread recognition for Professor Noam and CITI in Japan. Subsequently, many Japanese researchers began visiting CITI. Furthermore, the ministry expressed a desire to send young officials to study at CITI annually for training. This created opportunities not only for researchers, but also for many officials to learn about U.S. telecommunications policy. I would like to express my sincere gratitude once again to Professor Noam and CITI for his personal mentorship extended to me with his profound inspiration, which was also extended to many researchers and policymakers in Japan, as well as US.
Our final speaker on the recorded kind is Ambassador David Gross, who I think, again, not having had the chance to listen ahead of time what he's going to say, exemplifies really one of the other interactions that Ellie has had with many of those international organizations, particularly during the earlier days of telecommunication, dominated the discussion from the ITU to the OECD in that. And so I look forward to hearing what Ambassador Gross has to say about international organizations.
Hello, Ellie, and hello, friends and colleagues who are at this dinner that I so wish I were a part of, but unfortunately, I'm in Asia right now and unable to be with you tonight. But I'll be there in spirit and wishing Ellie a terrific so-called retirement. We all know Ellie, and we know that he's not at all going to be retiring, but at least we can allow him to pretend like he's going to be doing something of that nature. But I really just wanted to spend a moment just to not only congratulate Ellie, but to thank Ellie so very much for all that he's done. He's done extraordinary work in academia. We all know that very well. But he's also done extraordinary work in the public sector, including as a commissioner of the New York Public Service Commission, but also as having had tremendous impact on policymakers, both in the United States and especially abroad, who have looked to Ellie for his wisdom, his insights, his help, and for the great work that he has done to help make the world a much better place. It's not been easy. It has been a difficult process because he's lived through many transformations that are technologically driven, that are societally impactful, and yet Ellie has championed the marketplace, new technologies, but in a way that balances both the needs for improvement in the way in which we organize ourselves, but also very much in a way that benefits people, and the way in which technology can benefit people when it's done well, when it's done correctly, and when government plays its appropriate role, both in the short term and in the long term. So Ellie, I just want to thank you. I want to recognize you. And I want to be very clear that you have had an impact way beyond academia, way beyond the public sector, and way beyond the normal situation, because you have had an impact, a direct and tangible impact on generations of students, generations of policymakers, and therefore on the broader community, which we are all a part of, in a way that very few people have had. You've had a profound impact, a profoundly positive impact, and we thank you so very much for that. Take good care and have a wonderful evening.
One person who I can actually say something about more personally, when I was at the Federal Communications Commission, one of the jobs that I had was to meet with various industry representatives. If ChatGPT had been around at the time, for most of those meetings, I could probably just run the bio and the company through ChatGPT if it had existed, and I would have gotten a pre-meeting summary of a meeting that I would have an hour later, and not just retrospective, but prospective. Utterly predictable what they would say, often well. With Dave, that problem didn't exist. As in, always tell me something new and something interesting, and so I look forward to hearing what he has to contribute today.
Stu here is the president of the New York chapter of the Internet Society, and since we knew something was happening, we decided, well, Stu?
It came to our attention that Ellie was retiring, and we had a discussion on our board meeting, and we said, we got to do something to recognize this guy. He has been such an inspiration with the advocacy and just work in the whole internet ecosystem. So we came together and we decided we wanted to create a Internet Hero Award. So this is the first annual Internet Hero Award to be awarded by the New York chapter of the Internet Society to Ellie Noam. Here you go. Thank you for your contributions and your work. It's been incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm humbled. I'm not sure if I deserve it. I like what you have to say. My father would have liked it.
Just this way of thinking, because I'm about to explain why he deserved it, and that he's too busy being modest about it. I've learned an enormous number of things here at CITI over the last 25 years that really address the issues we're dealing with today. For example, AI is obviously the biggest thing that's happened in my lifetime in technology, although we don't know what's going to happen with it, and we don't know whether the human race is going to survive much longer. Hopefully, it will. But is it a bubble financially? The reality is the technology is important, but it's a financial bubble. Andrew Litzko at CITI, back before the bubble burst, proved very dramatically that the internet bubble was just that. Litzko, who is a mathematician at Bell Labs, who, among other things, contributed to the solution of Fermat's theorem, did a reductor ad absurdum, my Latin pronunciation is terrible, went back 5 years and said what everybody was saying, at that point they were saying that the internet was doubling every 120 days, look back what the number was in the internet 5 years before, and proved it could not be growing as fast as everybody thought. We're now trying to figure out when the bubble is going to burst in AI. Technology survives, but the business is, as Jason said before, is not. That's still important. Learned it from Litzko. Another one, Jensen Huang with NVIDIA is running around the world talking about the importance of building sovereign AI. and how it's crucial that every nation, not just India and China, but the Africans and the other South Asians, have their own presence in AI and can develop it for their nation. I said something like that at a CITI meeting about how important it was that for things like social networking, a country like India certainly could and should develop their own, because there are now tens of billions of dollars every year coming from the global south to California and to Seattle. And that's not really a good thing given the economics. Pepper, you're here somewhere, aren't you? Yeah. Pepper got up and said that the value of Facebook social networking was so enormous that India shouldn't try to do it itself. It should work with the existing Facebook, and that would give them the benefits of social networking, overwhelming the sovereign issues. We had a nice chat about that at this meeting there, and I think we still disagree about that, but that's one of the biggest issues on AI, whether India and many others should build their own. Much more like that, but I'm going to run out of time, so I wanted to talk about one of the most important things. We all know what's happening in the world today. We just heard the speaker talking about how important it is to bring the world back together and not let it dissolve. That takes courage. And there's somebody in this room who's exhibited enormous courage that's right in the middle of one of the biggest issues around AI as well, which is censorship and whether you should have freedom of speech and what that means. Nadine there, Ellie's wife, among other things, and head of the ACLU, has a family who knows all about what Nazis are. Nadine, as head of the ACLU, led the defense of the right of Nazis to march in a Jewish suburb of Chicago, Skokie, and have their free speech as well. I agreed with her then. I probably disagree now in hate speech, but that's the kind of thing future meetings can talk about, but it's a kind of thing that takes enormous courage. And I recommend people listen to the last session this afternoon, because it includes two people who are speaking truth to power. One of them is using his Nobel Prize to bring some common sense and decency to economics. And another of whom, I don't know if you know, is Larry Lessig, who has done enormous things that explain economics and society, but also spoke to the power of the Catholic Church, in which he was deeply involved when he was a teenage altar boy. And he's spoken very publicly about all those issues. So for all that, Stu, give the plaque over to Ellie.
Yes, and the effort. So thank you, Nick, for your service and contribution.